Today we are here to have a discussion with the architect and artist Juan Navarro Baldeweg and Tassos Tanulas, the architect and restorer Tassos Tanulas. My name is Agnes Kubeles and I'm architect. This discussion is because we have this opportunity of the presence of architect Navarro, because he's going to give a lecture organized by the Spanish Embassy and the Greek Institute of Architecture, and this lecture is going to take place tomorrow in the Benaki Museum. So, in order to start this discussion, we put down some notes with keywords mostly, and we can start in this way, if you agree, and continue as we wish, according to how the discussion leads us. Okay. Context is a real, and the sensibility that comes from this need in architecture is a real challenge for architects, for some architects, not all, and is immediately linked with sustainable architecture, according to my opinion. This is that I wanted to start talking about, and I want to ask you, Juan, what your opinion is.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Agnes. Well, it's a good question. To me, it's impossible to do not be a contextual architect. It's impossible because, as you know, I am also a painter, and I am very sensitive to the image, about the image of a building, a new building in the space. As an artist, I always think in what surrounds this new object in the space. I mean, it's impossible to me. Do not be contextual. Several years ago, I wrote, maybe you have read this, a small statement which I call tapestry. Any architectural element, any building, any piece of architecture is like a figure in a tapestry. For instance, things in the hunter in a tapestry, and then all the threads of the tapestry, the threads of the tapestry that make the figure, runs all over the tapestry. And it's the same. This is an image. I think it's an image that I like very much because it clarifies the absolute need to be aware of the context. Because anything in architecture is made with the threads that are in the place. I mean, it's impossible to not be part of the all over tapestry.
When about did you write this on tapestry?
Well, I think it's a very small statement. It's 90s, probably 91, yes. 90, around the 90s.
It's really funny because of a coincidence that happens this moment. Because in around 90 there was in publishing. A project of mine was published in the architectural design in this magazine,
yes.
And the title of it was Tapestry Weaving.
Yes, yes.
And it had to do with this museum in Naxos, the in situ museum in Naxos design.
Yes.
And this, because I had described it like this, the small bridge joining two parts of the place, of the square, on top of this museum.
Yes.
It was as if this was from the needle, a stitch of a needle in a tapestry.
Yeah.
So I'm really.
Well, it's an enlargement of this theory of architecture as textile. It's an enlargement, an environmental enlarging of the Semper theory. That architecture comes from the textile, has textile origins. Mm-hmm. And also I have been in the Naxos Museum. I think yes, it's beautiful.
Thank you.
I remember, and even I mentioned in some writings the experience of these small museums that are full of life in place. It's very important to me. Also, it has to do with the idea of a fabric, something that continues. I mean, if you open the window, you see the same sky that was there forever. I was talking about the sensitivity of the architect, the Greek architect. I don't know the name.
Mesicles, the Propylea.
Mesicles, the Propylea.
And maybe
how he was aware of how to deal with the topography, and then the beauty of this object, or what we see, is because he managed to fit with what it was there. So he was contextual in the sense we were talking about. Exactly. He was very aware of this is the west entrance, no?
This is the west entrance, yes. In general, it seems that the Greeks had developed a way of accommodating their buildings and the functions of the sanctuaries, let's say, of the public spaces into the landscape. This was something that was done naturally with experience and the feeling. What happens with Mesicles and the Propylea, since you mentioned it, this was something specific and a great step in the history of the management of the landscape in antiquity. This is a great moment of in the development of architecture and the mentality of thinking about what we do with the natural environment and the building which we are going to build in there. So this was something designed by the architect and not by the experience and the heritage, let's say, the thinking, the intellectual heritage that they had in them. So this was something invented by the architect, the arrangement done at the Propylea, and also the composition of the building. So your thing is, remark was very up to the point about the Propylea. And
because you see, there are some questions in architecture that are thought by all architects. In general, I mean, in art, always there is something previous in the history. I mean, you can find examples in which the architect or the painter were aware of this problem. Contextuality was a common question in the 19th, but actually in the 70s. The land art, for instance, land art has been very good for the philosophy of the contextuality, because they start to work with the landscape and with the horizon, or even with the cosmos, with the stars, and which is all these are threads of defining the figures, and for instance, there is a nice book by Vincent Scully.
By Vincent Scully, of course.
Vincent Scully.
He's
Scully,
very well known
architectural historian.
I know the name, but I have not read any book of his.
He wrote around 70s.
In the 70s, because I think he talked about the Greek temples in the space of and the landscape in general.
Oh, that book! It's
maybe this book. I mean, what my point is that he was aware. I think I know him in the States. I met him in Yale School of Architecture. I was teaching there, and he was aware of these problems. Even he was inventing perhaps a vision or a way to see the temples, because he probably he knows the land art artists. For instance, when he mentioned about the orientation of a temple in relation with the mountains. this kind of readings that perhaps are problematic, I'm sure, but in any way, this is a kind of thinking that was developed because the artists start
simultaneously.
Simultaneously.
But before you continue, I want to return to the topography that you mentioned, and to the remark about the Acropolis, and to say that the Greek landscape, because of its small scale, helps people to think on how to put new building in it, and to invent ways, and also to remind us all about of the terracing.
That's right.
The terracing of the land, to cultivate it. Something that had begun many years before.
Yes, you're right, Agnes, and I think it's one of the most really beautiful things to this continuity between nature and artificiality, or artificial buildings, because in the terraces, which are very old, the terraces is the way to cultivate in a hill, to make terraces with stones. Where star architecture is everywhere.
Yes, isn't it?
It's everywhere. So it's very nice, and even I was thinking to write something, or to develop and research about this kind of architecture in the landscape that start to be, for instance, with a bridge, for instance, or with a canal of water channel, or even a house that is starting in the same wall. So then the architecture became literally a figure in a tapestry.
Yes,
it's an image.
It's a new stitch.
That's right. It's like weaving. So it's very important. And I think, as a summary, I think it's not possible to me to not be contextual.
Yes.
Yes.
Tassos, we're going to add something to.
I like the way you both approach. This is my way, my generation's way, let's say, to approach these topics. It's very good.
Are you sure it is our generation's way? Because there are many different opinions.
When we were students, this was the right way to think about these things. But in the last years, of course, I'm talking always from the part of an archaeological, let's say, architect who deals always with antiquities, the natural setting of an archaeological site, and such things. And what I would like to say is that, of course, what happens in Greece and in most of the other European countries is that all this experience, which I mentioned before, that the ancient Greeks had of the experience of their landscape, and which would be the most profitable way to erect a building somewhere, doing what they did for cultivating, let's say, doing these retaining walls, terraces, little terraces, because terraces are cheaper and easier to make, and so little temples, and put them all in the textile, in the great carpet, which is the landscape of the environment. Yes. And this went on for centuries or millennia. Going back to the book you were quoting before, and also not just this, but the literature developed in the last years in the postmodern era. I mean, we have schemes which are imposed in the interpretation of the older schemes, and then sometimes you have some interpretations which overinterpret what we have from the ancients, the old people, who were just doing little by little, adding a stitch in this huge carpet, which is the surface of the earth. And I mean, we have some postmodern thinkers which apply models, which for me sometimes, because I deal so much with old architecture, I don't design architecture, they apply these postmodern schemes into things which did not know them.
Yeah, no, you are right.